discussion was GST. We had seen how GST is a problem when it comes to fiscal federalism in India, why it is a challenge. Now GST is an example of cooperative federalism. It is also considered as an example of cooperative federalism because the first reason is this, that the states have been, though the states have given up their what you can say autonomy, but this is voluntarily in nature, it's voluntary, and the objective is to achieve development. So come up with a coordinated policy, come up with a coordinated financial policy for achieving development, and that is the reason, one of the reasons. Second, center's value of vote is 1/3, whereas states have 2/3 value of votes. So center also has delegated, the center also has delegated the power to the states, that the decision making power in terms of value of vote that is there, it is more with the states than with that of the center. Clear? And if you look at the present context of the decisions that have been taken, the decisions that have been taken by the GST Council are more unanimous in nature. The decisions are more unanimous in nature. Decisions that have been taken by the GST Council, they have been taken unanimously. All of this points out to the aspect of cooperative federalism, wherein the center and the state, they are cooperating with each other for a more what you can say a more economic development. Clear? More economic development. Arun Jaitley, when he was the finance minister, obviously he was the finance minister when it was implemented, he said that there will be a rise of at least 2% of our GDP when all of this is rationally implemented. So let us see how that happens, if there is a rise or not. Clear? This is the reason why it is considered to be an example of cooperative federalism as well. This is where we complete our discussion on center-state relations. Now we move to the next topic, that is local bodies. Local bodies. Local self-government. Before we get into the constitutional aspect of our discussion, let's look at it from historical perspective, the local bodies that are there. See, local bodies in India, it is an ancient idea. It's not something that was that we have conceived in our constitution only. There has been it has been an ancient idea going back to the Mauryan period. If you look at the Mauryan period, there will be there are number of examples, or there are number of incidents wherein we see the existence of local bodies in the Mauryan period as well. In fact, if you look at the architecture that is present in the southern part of the country, that architecture itself points out to the existence of local bodies. In southern India, you will find that the temples that are there, they are very huge compared to the northern part of the country, because it was these temples which were used as a place. It was also used as a place for local bodies or the villagers to gather and take decisions. So the existence of local bodies in India, it is not of a recent origin, it is an ancient idea. However, the Britishers that were there, they initially destroyed the existence of local bodies in India, and later on understood that it was important for better administration, and hence they were also the ones who were responsible for the initial local self-government bodies that is there. It comes up in 1687. The first municipal corporation in India is formed in 1687, the Madras Municipal Corporation. Later on, the Bombay Municipal Corporation and other were also formed. So the going back to the era of Mayo and Ripon, both of them were responsible for what you can say revitalizing the existence of local bodies in India. Coming to the constitutional period, initially, though the idea of Swaraj, which was very important, what you can say principle behind which the whole freedom movement was organized. However, when we constitutionalized, that means when we came up with the Indian Constitution, the Indian Constitution did not have any mandatory provision referring to the existence of local bodies. Interestingly, this did not happen. Why? Because if you look at the original constitution only in the directive principles we have already discussed, there was a provision called as organization of village panchayat that was mentioned. And originally this was not a constitutional idea. It was not present in any mandatory provisions of the constitution. It was present only in directive principles. There were two reasons behind it. Why originally it was not given constitutional, what you can say mandatory constitutional status. There were two reasons behind it. One was given by B.R. Ambedkar. According to B.R. Ambedkar, allowing for local bodies at the village level or at the urban level during the constitution, that means 1950s, would allow for caste and class domination. Because of the social structure that was present in India, B.R. Ambedkar was of the opinion that it would lead to class and caste domination. As it is, India had this existence of caste system. It was very much prevalent, and this would lead to this. The second reason it was from Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru argued for a centralized economic model, and in a centralized economic model, the existence of Panchayati Raj institutions did not fit. It was not something that was feasible, or it was not something that was fitting in the manner in which initially we had conceptualized our economic system. It would be centralized, dictated from the center rather than being decentralized. That is the reason why, if you go back to the 1950s and see the original constitution, it was included only as a part of our directive principles. Clear? I think it is which article does it deal with? Which article of the directive principles deals with this? Organization of village panchayat. Article 40 of the Constitution. It deals with organization of village panchayats. That is the reason why it was not initially constitutionalized. However, the need for this for the first time was given by a committee that was formed in the 1950s itself, 1957 to be very specific, called as Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee was formed in 1957, and Balwant Rai Mehta Committee was given the job to look into two policies, two programs that were implemented by the government of India, called as Community Development Program and National Extension Service. And while recommending on this particular program, Balwant Rai Mehta committee recommended that there should be Panchayati Raj institutions that should be established in India. Based on the recommendations of Balwant Rai Mehta committee, in 1959, the first Panchayati Raj institution was established in India in Nagaur district of Rajasthan. The first PRI came up in the Nagaur district of Rajasthan. It was followed by states such as Andhra Pradesh. However, the recommendations given by Balwant Rai Mehta committee was not completely adhered to, because Balwant Rai Mehta committee talked about a three-tier structure, that is Panchayat at the village level, then at the block level or at the intermediate level, and then Panchayat at the district level. And the Balwant Rai Mehta committee wanted that appropriate decentralization of powers should be done. Appropriate decentralization of powers should be done so that the Panchayati Raj institutions could act as an institution of self-government. However, this was not done, and after 20 years, that is 1977, in 1977, the second committee was established by the Janata Party, called as the Ashok Mehta Committee. Ashok Mehta Committee. Ashok Mehta Committee recommended, almost the same recommendations given by the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee was recommended, except for the fact that it was more elaborated. Ashok Mehta Committee to a certain extent disagreed with Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, because Balwant Rai Mehta Committee talked about a three-tier structure, whereas Ashok Mehta Committee talked about a two-tier structure. That is, one Panchayat at the block level consisting of a population of 15 to 20,000, and that is to be known as the Panchayat Samiti, and then there will be a Panchayat at the district level. Ashok Mehta Committee further elaborated upon what are the measures that should be taken by the government, like providing reservation to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, providing reservation to women, allowing for the participation of political parties, taking all necessary actions to ensure the independence of these bodies, and it elaborated the recommendations, giving somewhere around 132 recommendations on Panchayati Raj institutions. However, the Janata Party, before the recommendations of Ashok Mehta Committee could be submitted or acted upon, the Janata Party lost power. And that is the reason why there were absolutely no steps taken on the recommendations of the Ashok Mehta Committee. However, certain states voluntarily acted, and accordingly they did what? They took up certain measures that were recommended by the Ashok Mehta Committee. After the Ashok Mehta Committee, in 1980s came up the GVK Rao Committee. The GVK Rao Committee and the LM Singhvi Committee, these were almost simultaneously formed, and both of these committees, the GVK Rao Committee talked about a body, again further elaborated upon the recommendations that were given by the Ashok Mehta Committee. The major recommendations that were given by the GVK Rao Committee was that there should be formation of an administrative body called as the District Development Officer, the DDC, the District Development Commissioner. And the GVK Rao Committee advocated that there shall be, this developmental functions of the district collector should be taken up taken away from the district collector and it should be given to this particular office of the DDC, along with the power to administer the Panchayati Raj institutions. However, simultaneously the LM Singhvi committee was formed, and LM Singhvi committee gave a very important recommendation wherein it recommended that there should be constitutionalization of Panchayati Raj institutions. Which means because of the LM Singhvi committee said that because of the lack of constitutional protection that this body has, there is no constitutional protection. That is the reason why the state government tends to dominate the local self-government or Panchayati Raj institutions. They are not giving them adequate autonomy. These institutions, even when they are formed, they are frequently superseded by the state government by dismissing them or dissolving them. And because of this, this institution has become ineffective. So to increase the effectiveness of this institution, the constitutionalization of this body should be done. That is, they should be given constitutional protection. Based on the recommendation of LM Singhvi committee, the Rajiv Gandhi government introduced the 64th and the 65th Constitutional Amendment Act. However, these Amendment Acts failed to, this Amendments Act failed to pass because though it was passed in the Lok Sabha, it was defeated in the Rajya Sabha. The reason of defeat was that the central government wanted, it was the central government who wanted the administrative powers over the Panchayati Raj institutions and the municipal bodies, which was considered to be contradictory to what the constitution had provided for, and that was the reason why the Rajya Sabha, expressing the interest of the states, defeated the constitutional amendment bill. After Rajiv Gandhi, even the VP Singh government, wanted to constitutionalize or give constitutional protection to the PRIs and the municipal bodies. That did not happen. VP Singh government could not complete the 5 years tenure. Finally, Narasimha Rao comes to power, and Narasimha Rao he amends the bill that was introduced by Rajiv Gandhi. He did what? He transferred the powers which were to be concentrated in the center to the states. And that was the reason why the 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment Bill were passed. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Bill added Part 9 of the Constitution which deals with Panchayats, and the 74th Constitutional Amendment added Part 9A to the Constitution which deals with municipalities. And since then, what we have is Part 9 and Part 9A of the Constitution, which provides for a constitutional Panchayati Raj institution and municipalities. Clear? This is the historical perspective associated with it. What are the recommendations of various committees and commissions that are there? Now you can go through Lakshmikant, it has been elaborated there. So please go through it. Sometimes that is also asked. Sometimes questions are asked on the recommendations of committees. Like Ashok Mehta committee is number of times. You will find that in number of previous occasions Ashok Mehta committee has been asked. Before we get into another committee that was formed in 2009, let's discuss first the constitutional provisions of Panchayati Raj institutions and municipalities, and then we will come to that very committee. Clear? Next, so give a subheading here, write Part 9 of the Constitution, that is Panchayats. Let's start with the constitutional provisions. First, Article 243A, which deals with Gram Sabha. One more thing, the 73rd Constitutional and the 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts that are there, basically the provisions that they have added to the Constitution, these provisions can be divided into two. The nature of provisions can be divided into two. some provisions are mandatory provisions and some provisions are voluntary provisions. Mandatory provisions means that it has to be implemented by the states. It's not up to the states. They have to implement these provisions. Whereas some are voluntary provisions, which means that it is up to the state, and if the state wants to implement it, if the state has the discretionary power there, and if the state wants to implement it, only then it can implement it. It's not forced upon the states by the constitution. So when we divide these provisions, we are going to look into whether it is a mandatory provision or whether it is a voluntary provision. Gram Sabha. Under Article 243A, Gram Sabha. What is mentioned under Article 243A? First write that. A Gram Sabha may exercise such powers and perform such functions at the village level as the legislature of a state may by law provide. Next paragraph. Under Article 243, the Constitution defines Gram Sabha as a body consisting of persons registered in the electoral rolls relating to a village comprised within the area of the Panchayat at the village level. So if you look at Article 243 of the Constitution and Article 243A of the Constitution, both of them point out to what the Gram Sabha is. So if we look at Article 243 of the Constitution, Article 243 of the Constitution first defines what is the Gram Sabha. And Article 243 of the Constitution says that Gram Sabha is an organization, or Gram Sabha will comprise of voters, registered voters of a particular area, within the Panchayat. That means if we talk about, we have already seen election commission, and we know there is something called as a single electoral roll. And we know that every constituency, going back to a discussion of Article 81 of the Constitution, or for that matter Article 170 of the Constitution, which deals with Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies, we know that every constituency is, every state or the country, when it comes to election to the Lok Sabha, is divided into various constituencies. They are divided into various constituencies and we elect one member from each constituency. We elect one member for each constituency. Clear? Similarly, when we talk about the Gram Sabha is an institution wherein there is, suppose this is the constituency limit or the area limit of a panchayat. The members who are, or the voters, the registered voters of this particular area automatically become the part of the Gram Sabha. It is defined under Article 243 of the Constitution. Article 243A of the Constitution explicitly mentions what will be the duties and functions of the Gram Sabha. And Article 243A of the Constitution says that the powers and the duties that the Lok Sabha will have, the powers and the duties that the Gram Sabha will have, this will be defined by a law made by the state legislature. Which means two things. First, if you look at 243A, which talks about the Gram Sabha, the existence of the Gram Sabha is a mandatory provision under the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. It is a mandatory provision. There cannot be that the state does not implement the provision that is constituting a Gram Sabha. That will definitely be there. But what are the powers and functions that the Gram Sabha enjoys? It is not mandatory on the state. It is a voluntary provision, which means the state legislature may by law define what is the powers and the functions that the Gram Sabha is going to enjoy. Clear? So, constitution of Gram Sabha, mandatory. Functions and powers enjoyed by the Gram Sabha, voluntary. Clear? Understood this? Article 243 defines what is Gram Sabha. Article 243A talks about the powers and functions that are to be enjoyed by the Gram Sabha. 243, based on 243 and 243A, now we know that Gram Sabha, constitution of Gram Sabha is a mandatory provision, but the powers and functions that are enjoyed by the Gram Sabha is not mandatory, and what is the powers and functions? It is defined by the state legislature by a law. Clear? Absolutely clear? Now, when we see the Gram Sabha and when we say that the Gram Sabha comprises of all the registered voters of a particular panchayat, in a particular panchayat, when we look at this particular institution comprising of all the voters in this particular panchayat, can we say Gram Sabha, is it an elected institution? Is it an elected institution? No. It automatically comprises of all the voters that are there in one panchayat, which means there is no election. I do not have to be elected to the Gram Sabha. I become the member of Gram Sabha as soon as I become a registered voter in the panchayat. If I am a registered voter in the panchayat, I am already the member of Gram Sabha. I automatically become the member of Gram Sabha. So where is the provision of election? Did I say members are to be elected? No. I said that see the definition. What does the definition say? It says it comprises of, the institution comprises of all persons registered in the electoral roll relating to a village or in the panchayat, in that particular panchayat, because one village may have 2 or more panchayats as well. Some villages have, depending upon the population of the village, some villages have one panchayat, some villages have more than one panchayat. And those who are registered voters from that particular village, they automatically become the part of the part of the Gram Sabha where they are registered as a voter. Yes. आपने थोड़ा सा गलत पढ़ लिया है. I said elections are precondition only to representative democracy. They are not a precondition to direct democracy. they are only a precondition to representative democracy, and Gram Sabha is an institution of direct democracy. So there it is not the case. Clear? Yes.
Sir, what about
UTs without state legislature? Coming to it, just a minute. Clear? Absolutely understood this idea. So in this particular territorial area, देखो सीधी सी बात है, if you go to your village, ठीक है, and if you obviously we live in urban areas, so we not necessarily we are very much aware about the political structure that is present there. If you go to your village, you will find that every village, because it is a mandatory provision, so whichever state you belong to, it does not matter. Whichever state you belong to, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir, it does not matter, and Panchayati Raj institutions are applicable. They are, they have been implemented in all the states in India. Yes, there are some regions and some states which fall under schedule areas, etc. There it has not been, but otherwise it has been included. Otherwise it is implemented everywhere. So you will find a particular village which has, which is very densely populated, because right today even villages are, in villages also you will find that a population of 5 to 10,000 is there, even in a village. And in those cases you will find that a village, within a village there may be 2 or more panchayats that are in existence. 2 or more panchayats that are in existence. In my village I have 2 panchayats. Now in my village I have 2 panchayats. So there is a road dividing, and in this side there is a different panchayat, and this side there is a different panchayat. And what is the Gram Sabha? The Gram Sabha is basically an institution that is formed by all the members who are in the electoral roll from this particular panchayat. So in this panchayat, all the members who are the registered voters, they automatically become the member of Gram Sabha in this panchayat. And on the other hand, on the other side of the road, those individuals who are registered voters at this particular side, they automatically become the member of this panchayat. Not panchayat, member of Gram Sabha. Clear? This is what is a Gram Sabha, and that is the reason why when we say Gram Sabha is an institution of direct democracy. Why is Gram Sabha an institution of direct democracy? Because as it is, I do not have to contest elections to become a member. As soon as I am a registered voter, I automatically become the member of the Gram Sabha. I automatically become the member of the Gram Sabha. I do not have to be a registered voter for this. I automatically become a member of Gram Sabha. Clear? Now, why it is considered as an institution of direct democracy? To understand this, we have to go beyond what the Constitution prescribes for. Let's look at what is the objective of Gram Sabha. The objective of Gram Sabha is to act as the legislature at the village level. The objective is this, because when we say the Gram Sabha, the objective of the Gram Sabha is that as soon as in this particular part, suppose this is the constituency and all of them are registered members, registered voters, they become a part of a Gram Sabha. And what is the objective? The objective is that this Gram Sabha that is there, it will be responsible for decisions. It will act as a legislature and it will be responsible for decisions. And that is the reason why when we talk about panchayats, Gram Panchayats, not Gram Sabha, I am talking about Gram Panchayats right now. Now what happens in this particular, suppose these are the 2 panchayats. So all the registered voters, they will elect one individual here, they will elect one individual here, and they are to do what? What is the role of this individual who has been elected as a member of Gram Panchayat? This individual is to act as the presiding officer of the Gram Sabha. This individual is to act as the presiding officer of the Gram Sabha. And these individuals are responsible for taking up what are the decisions that are to be taken by the Gram Sabha. And once those decisions are being taken by the Gram Sabha, the members of the Gram Panchayat, what they will do? They will ensure its execution. They will ensure its execution. Relate this. Now, this very idea that you see, have you understood what I am trying to say? Because this is very important. Gram Sabha is formed by the registered voters. They elect one individual who is a member of Gram Panchayat, not the Gram Sabha. He is also the member of Gram Sabha, but he is also the member of Gram Panchayat because he is elected to the Gram Panchayat. What will be his responsibility? His responsibility will be to act as the presiding officer. Because he is an elected member and it is the people who have elected him or her, now that individual enjoys authority. So when the village, when the Gram Sabha decides or when the Gram Sabha takes a particular decision, it will be his authority. Because he is an elected member, it will have, this position will have the authority to execute the decisions that have been taken by the Gram Sabha. Clear? Are you getting this? Now, what was direct democracy? How did I define direct democracy? Yes?
Members of the government are elected directly by the people.
No, that is representative democracy. You are still confusing direct democracy with representative democracy. Yes? Referendum is an example of direct democracy. Yes. What happens in a referendum? What happens in a referendum?
Majority decision is
No, people vote and themselves decide. Voters will decide. Exactly. It is the voters who decide. No, it is the voter who decides what is the decision. And the individual is only responsible for, the government is only responsible for executing the decision. What is the difference between representative democracy and direct democracy? Representative democracy stands for people elect their representatives and those representatives are responsible for taking decisions. In direct democracy, people, they themselves decide. The decisions are taken by the people, and if there is an elected representative, he is responsible for executing that decision. This is the difference. And what do we see in Gram Sabha? How is the Gram Sabha working? The Gram Sabha is taking the decisions and the member of Gram Panchayat is responsible for executing the decision. Is Gram Sabha an example of direct democracy? Absolutely yes. It is an example of direct democracy. But in India, like we do with almost everything, we have messed this also up. How? You can see what is mentioned under Article 243A. Article 243A mentions that the powers and functions of the Gram Sabha is to be decided by the state legislature. Which means whether the Gram Sabha truly acts as an institution of direct democracy is dependent upon the state legislature. If they allow the Gram Sabha to act as an institution of direct democracy, it does. Otherwise, it does not. It is just merely an institution wherein, though it is formed, but what is the purpose of that institution, it may not be very clear. This is what we have done. Rather than allowing the Gram Sabha to work truly as an institution of direct democracy, we have given this power to the state legislature. And if the state legislature decides that yes, Gram Sabha should act as an institution of direct democracy, they will give the Gram Sabha such powers and such functions, and accordingly the Gram Sabha will act. Otherwise, the institution may exist. It is mandatory for the institution to exist. Hence, the institution exists, but the powers and functions may not necessarily enjoy those powers and functions. Clear? So this is Article 243A, that is the existence of Gram Sabha. Now you know why Gram Sabha is an institution of direct democracy. You also know that in our constitution, what is the problem that exists with the manner in which we have conceived the institution of Gram Sabha. Clear? Next. Yes. Gram Panchayat is elected, Gram Sabha is not elected. The members who are elected by the Gram Sabha, they become the part of Gram Panchayat. Yes. See, ideally speaking, Gram Sabha is the legislative body and the Gram Panchayat, member of Gram Panchayat is an executive body. Ideally speaking. But this is not necessarily what happens. Next. Article 243B. Constitution of Panchayats. Constitution of Panchayats. 243B clause 1. 243B clause 1 states there shall be constituted in every state panchayats at the village intermediate and district levels. There shall be constituted in every state panchayats at the village, intermediate and district levels. 243B clause 2. 243B clause 2. Panchayats at the intermediate level may not be constituted in a state having a population not exceeding 20 lakhs. Under 243B clause 1, underline the term shall. And underline village, intermediate and district. Which means the constitution, the 73rd constitutional amendment, it accepted the recommendation of Balwant Rai Mehta committee, wherein Balwant Rai Mehta committee recommended that there should be a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system starting at the village, intermediate and then at the district level. So the same 3-tier system has been implemented in India and it is a mandatory provision because you have underlined the term shall. Shall means it is not a discretion of the states. So it shall be, which means the village, the 3-tier system that is there, the 3-tier system is a mandatory provision under the constitution. Remember this. Though, yes, the constitution provides that in those states which have a population of less than 20 lakhs, yes, in those states, it may so happen that the intermediate panchayat may not exist and there will be a panchayat at the village level and another panchayat will be at the district level. Otherwise, it is a mandatory provision to have panchayats. The 3-tier system of panchayats is a mandatory provision. Clear? So you might get a question, suppose in your prelims examination. This is very important for prelims. So suppose you get a statement. The statement says first the part 11 of the part 9 of the constitution or the panchayats under the 73rd constitutional amendment, it is mandatory for the states to have a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system. Second, or the second statement says that having a 2-tier Panchayati Raj system has been prescribed by the constitution for states having a population of less than 20 lakhs. Both of them are correct. Which means it does not mean that because the states having, the constitution says that those states wherein the population is less than 20 lakh, it does not mean for them it is not mandatory to have. Only because the population is so low, that is the reason why the constitution prescribes. Otherwise it will not be feasible. That it will not be feasible that the panchayat at the village level and panchayat at the intermediate level, they will be administering almost the same number of people. So that will not make any sense. And that is the reason why this provision has been included. But it does not mean that it is a voluntary provision, it is a mandatory provision. Clear? Next, Article 243C. Article 243C, composition of panchayats. Composition of panchayats. The state legislature may by law, make provisions for the composition of panchayats, composition of panchayats. Next, Article 243C, Clause 2. All the seats in the panchayats shall be filled by persons chosen by direct elections from territorial constituencies, and for this purpose each panchayat shall be divided into territorial constituencies. 243C, Clause 3. 243C, Clause 3. The state legislature may by law provide for the representation to first sub point here, the chairperson of the panchayats at the village level in the panchayats at the intermediate level or chairperson of intermediate panchayats in district panchayats. Chairperson of intermediate panchayats at district panchayats. Second, the members of Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly in panchayats falling within their constituency other than the village level. Next point, the members of council of states, that is Rajya Sabha, or state legislative councils to the panchayats at intermediate level or district level where they are registered voters, where they are registered voters. Before we go, before we move forward, let's understand what you have written. We have already seen that a 3-tier panchayat structure is created, which means there is a panchayat at the village level, clear? There is a panchayat at the intermediate level, and there is a panchayat at the district level, clear? Now the constitution says all the members here, they are to be first directly elected. Clear? They are to be directly elected. Now, if you see the previous, when you go through your book Lakshmikant, and you will find that all the committees, commissions that were there, they recommended direct elections here, and they recommended here, it should be indirect elections, etc. But the constitution says direct elections. They are to be directly elected. So members here are all directly elected. Clear? Secondly, there can be representation given to whom? MPs and MLAs. That is MPs of Lok Sabha and MLAs. Where they get their representation? They get their representation in these two panchayats. That means at intermediate level as well as district level. Clear? They are getting at intermediate level or at district level. And in which areas do we give an MP? Suppose an MP is there in a particular, from a particular constituency. So do we give him representation in all panchayats of that are there in the state? No. Only those panchayats, that is only those intermediate and district panchayats which fall within their constituency. Clear? Third, representation is also given to MPs of Rajya Sabha and MLCs, members of Legislative Council. But because the MPs of Rajya Sabha or Legislative Council members that is there, they do not have a constituency. They are elected from a state. And MLCs that are there, we have already seen what Article 171 prescribes for. So they do not have a constituency. So how are they given representation? They are also given representation in intermediate and district panchayats, but from where they are registered voters. Clear? So suppose this is like I'll give you an example. Dr. Manmohan Singh is an MP of the Rajya Sabha from Rajasthan. Previously, for most of his career as an MP, he has been an MP in the Rajya Sabha. He's never contested Lok Sabha elections. He has always been an MP from Rajya Sabha, in Rajya Sabha, and from the state of Assam. Now, currently, he is an MP from Rajasthan. But he will not be given, despite the fact that he is an MP from Rajasthan, he will not be given representation to the intermediate and district panchayats of Rajasthan. He will be given the representation of, representation in the intermediate and district panchayats from where he is a voter, which means it may be in Delhi. It's very, he'll be a voter in Delhi. So in all those panchayats which falls under his constituency, where he is a registered voter, in all those intermediate and district panchayats he can get representation. Clear? Fourth, chairpersons. Have you understood this idea? Have you understood this idea? See, I am a registered voter from Northwest Delhi. My constituency is Northwest Delhi. Clear? So if I am an MP from Northwest Delhi, if I am an MP from Northwest Delhi, I get representation in all the intermediate and district panchayats. All the intermediate and district panchayats that are there in Northwest Delhi, which fall within my constituency obviously. If I am an MLC, so in that case, if an individual is an MLC, so in that case the individual will be given based on what rank he has. Lok Sabha constituency, so it is huge. Rajya Sabha constituency will be considered similar to that of Lok Sabha because he is a member of parliament. And similarly, when an MLC is given representation, so he will be given on the basis of constituency of an MLA, that is a smaller constituency. Clear? Have you understood? This is very logical. So if suppose I am a registered voter from Northwest Delhi and if I am an MP from Northwest Delhi, so I get representation in those intermediate and district panchayats which fall within Northwest Delhi. Clear? Understood? Now, suppose I get elected to the Rajya Sabha from different state of Assam. I get elected to the Rajya Sabha from the state of Assam because there is no residential qualification. There is no residential qualification in the Rajya Sabha. So I can be elected to the Rajya Sabha from other state also. So I get elected from the state of Assam. I get elected from the state of Assam, but do I get representation in intermediate or district panchayats in the state of Assam? No, I still, despite the fact that I am an MP from the state of Assam in the Rajya Sabha, because I am a voter in the Northwest constituency, Northwest Delhi, in that case all the district and intermediate panchayats that are there in the Northwest Delhi, I get representation there. Understood this idea now? This is the how they get representation. Now, chairperson of the village panchayat can get representation where? Here. Not as a chairperson, but as a representation, not as a member. He gets representation here. So he can attend the meetings. Now he will do everything, though he will not necessarily be considered as a member. Clear? If suppose the state has less than 20 lakh population, which means intermediate level is not there. So any individual who is the chairperson of village panchayat, he can directly get representation where? In the district panchayat. Suppose an individual is a chairperson of intermediate panchayat, he gets representation where? He gets representation at the district level. Understood this? This can also be done provided, as you have written, the state legislature may by law do it, which means though this is, that is directly elected member, this is a mandatory provision. This is a mandatory provision and all the members of all the 3 tiers have to be elected. This is a mandatory provision. The state legislature does not have any discretionary powers. These are voluntary provisions. The state legislature may by law. The state legislature may by law. The term that is used is may, which means it is the discretion of the state legislature. The state legislature may opt to do it or the state legislature may not. Clear? Understood this? Next, 243C clause 4. The chairperson of a panchayat and other members of the panchayat, whether directly elected or not, shall have the right to vote shall have the right to vote in the meetings of the panchayats. In the meetings of the panchayat. Clear? Meetings of the panchayat. So all these individuals, they have the right to vote there. So when suppose there is a piece of legislation that needs to be passed or a resolution that needs to be passed, in that case all these members get the right to vote. Next, clause 5. Clause 5. The chairperson of first subpoint within clause 5. A panchayat at the village level shall be elected in such a manner as the state legislature may by law provide. As the state legislature may by law provide. Second subpoint. Panchayats at the intermediate level or district level, shall be elected from amongst the elected members. This is what it means. When it comes to the village level, the chairperson of the panchayat at the village level, how is this individual elected? It is the state legislature which decides. Whereas when it comes to the chairperson of the intermediate or the chairperson of the district level panchayat, these individuals are elected from amongst the elected members. That means these individuals cannot be the chairperson of this particular panchayat. Clear? And obviously the chairperson, he is getting representation here, but he is not elected to this body, so he will also not be the chairperson in this body. Clear? There should not be any scope of confusion. See, the chairperson at the village level is elected in the manner the state legislature wants. The chairperson of the intermediate and district level is elected from the elected members of the panchayat. So one of the elected members of the intermediate panchayat will be the chairperson of the intermediate panchayat, and one of the members of the district panchayat, elected members of the district panchayat, becomes the chairperson of district panchayat. Clear? So those individuals who are given representation but are not elected, they will not become the chairperson. This is what it means. Clear? Understood this? Article 243C. We have now done what? See, Article 243B. We first established what is the Gram Sabha, which means this body is to elect the members of the panchayat. Then when it comes, 243A. 243B, we said that there are 3-tier panchayats, and panchayats will be there at 3 tiers: district, intermediate and village level. Then when it comes to composition, now we know that here all members are elected. There is no representation, all members are elected. Here and here, most of the members are elected, and for that there is a territorial constituency that is done, and accordingly members are elected. Now in rest of the cases, that is, there may be some individuals who may be given representation in these cases if they fall under these categories. Now we have also seen who will be the chairperson here, here and here. So what have we done? We have now composed the panchayats. Who will be the members, or how one will be elected here, or how one can be elected here or given representation here, or elected here and given representation here. Clear? Done? Next, 243D, reservation of seats. You have to understand this once. If you understand this once, after that you will never need to actually learn it. No, only once. You have to understand all these things once. If you understand it once, it is like a lifetime experience. It will always be there with you. You will always remember such facts. Clear? 243D, reservation of seats. The seats, clause 1, seats shall be reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in proportion to their population. In proportion to their population. In that panchayat area. It is very simple. If suppose this is an area and there are 10 panchayats here. Out of the 10 panchayats, suppose in the 10 panchayats the total population here is of scheduled caste is suppose 10%, which means the 10% of the seats will be reserved for them. Clear? So in proportion to their population. Clause 2, not less than 1/3 of the total, not less than 1/3 of the total seats are reserved for women. Clear? So when we talk about this total panchayats that are there, out of the total seats that are there, at least 1/3, it can be more than 1/3, cannot be less than 1/3. Clear? So you will find number of states have extended reservation to half, 50%. Women are getting 50% reservation in the local bodies. It can be done, but not less than, that is not less than 33 odd percent, but more than, it can be more than 33%. Clear? So not less than 1/3 of the seats are to be reserved for women. Now when I say women, not less than 1/3 of the seats are to be reserved for women, it means this. Suppose in this particular, suppose this is a panchayat, and out of this panchayat, suppose there are 10 village panchayats that are there. Just an example. So if suppose the population, if 10% is there, 10% seats are reserved for scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. Clear? And 1/3 reservation is to be provided obviously to women. At least 1/3 is to be provided to women. So when it comes to, suppose out of 10 panchayats, because 10% seats are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, so if suppose 2 seats are reserved, so 1/3 of them should belong to women belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So because obviously no, इसमें एक सीट 2 में तो नहीं बांट सकते, so half of them will be reserved for women. Clear? So when we are providing reservation are to be provided in this manner. Scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, they are given reservation. Suppose they are given reservation, suppose 10% of the seats are reserved, because they are given reservation in accordance to the population. And whatever the population may be, it may be 10%, it may be 7%, it may be as high as 20%, whatever. So if 10% of the seats are reserved, out of that 10% seats which are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, 1/3 should belong to women. Clear? So total 1/3 seats are reserved for women. And even the other categories, that is when it comes to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, those seats which are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, those seats, within those seats also, 1/3 are to be reserved for women belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Understood this idea? Next. Next you can write, seats can you can write it in this manner. The state legislature may by law, it is a different article 243D clause 4, clause 3, yes. The state legislature may by law, the state legislature may by law also provide reservation, in favor of backward classes of citizens. It's not 243DC, it is 243D6, clause 6. Clause 6. Underline here may, which means reservation given to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and women is mandatory. Reservation given to other backward classes is up to the state legislature, which means it is not a mandatory provision. Clear? One more thing I'll add here. When we are reserving seats for women or in favor of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, even the position of chairperson is reserved, which means if we provide suppose 1/3 reservation to women, so 1/3 of the total seats of the chairperson will also be reserved for women. If we provide 7% or 10% reservation in favor of scheduled tribes, so 10% of the total position of the chairpersons will also be reserved. Clear? 10% of it will also be reserved. Clear? 243E. Duration of panchayats. Every panchayat unless dissolved earlier will have a duration of 5 years. Further, an election to constitute a panchayat shall be completed before the expiry of its duration, or if dissolved earlier 6 months from the date of its dissolution. 6 months from the date of its dissolution. Further, a panchayat constituted upon dissolution of the panchayat shall continue only for the remainder of the period. There are two things we need to know here. The constitution is very clear. If suppose panchayats are formed after elections, it will continue for 5 years. It has a term of 5 years. If it is dissolved earlier, suppose after completing 2.5 years. Clear? Now constitution says what? The constitution says in this case, that is if the panchayat has completed 5 years, then elections are to be held before the completion of 5 years. That means it is to be held in such a manner that before it completes 5 years, a new panchayat is already formed. suppose it is dissolved for, no, it is dissolved after completing 2.5 years, then a maximum of 6 months, that is within 6 months, a new panchayat shall be constituted. And when the new constitution constituted within 6 months, it will continue for remainder period, which means only for the remaining 2.5 years, whatever is left. Clear? This is not the case when it comes to the Lok Sabha. When the Lok Sabha or the state legislative assembly is dissolved and a new Lok Sabha or state legislative assembly is constituted, it has a term of 5 years. Here, when it is dissolved in between 5 years and the new panchayat that is constituted, that new panchayat only has the term of the remaining, whatever was remaining. Clear? Understood this idea? Next, Article 243F. 4.5 years, it says, if the 6-month period is not left, or if the 6-month period expires and that by the time the duration of the panchayat is also expiring, then it is not mandatory, first of all, to conduct elections within 6 months, and the elections will be conducted only for the new panchayat, and that will have a term of 5 years. Clear? 243F, disqualification of members. Disqualification of members. A person is disqualified. A person is disqualified for being chosen as the member of panchayat, chosen as the member of panchayat, first sub point, if he is disqualified, under a law made by the concerned state legislature, next point, if he is disqualified under a law to become the member of state legislature, in brackets write, provided he is not disqualified on the grounds, on the grounds that he has not achieved the age of 25 years, not attained the age of 25 years, if he has attained the age of 21 years, see, two things. First, if I am disqualified to be a member of state legislative assembly, I am also disqualified to be a member of panchayat. Only one exception is there, that is 21 years. Because to become a member of state legislative assembly, I have to attain the age of 25 years. But to become the member of panchayat, I have only to attain the age of 21 years. So if I am disqualified to be the member of state legislative assembly for this reason, that I have not attained the age of 25 years, in that case I am qualified to become a member of panchayat if I have attained the age of 21 years. Clear? Second, if there is any law that is made by the state legislature for the purpose of elections, in that case I can be disqualified under that law as well. Example, in the state of Haryana, there has been a law passed that if you want to become a member of local bodies, you should at least have a degree which says that you have passed the 10th examination. In the state of Gujarat, there has been a qualification which has been added by law. If you want to be a member of local body, you should have in your house a working toilet. If you do not have a working toilet, you are disqualified to be a member of the local bodies. See, on these grounds, you are not disqualified to be a member of legislature, state legislature or Lok Sabha. You can be, even if you are illiterate. It does not matter. You can be a member of state legislature or you can be a member of parliament. But that is a ground for that is a qualification that you need to possess in the state of Haryana to become a member of local body. It has been imposed by the state legislature there. The state legislature has imposed it through a law that has been passed. Similarly, in the state of Gujarat, in the background of this Swachh Bharat Abhiyan that the union government took up, in the background of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the legislative assembly that was there, it passed a law saying that any individual, because Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has what? One of the objectives, to make India an open defecation free. Okay, ODF. So they passed a law saying that if an individual does not have a working toilet in their house, in their home, they are disqualified to be a member of state, in the member of local bodies. Now, under the constitution, under this very provision of the constitution, it is absolutely allowed. And it was challenged on the grounds. It was challenged. Both of these laws were challenged in the court. Now, it was challenged in the court and both of the laws were declared to be constitutional. Why? Because under the constitution, under Article 243F, it is something that the state legislature can do. Clear? Absolutely clear. Now see, if you talk about the law that was passed by the state of Gujarat, it's logical that okay, yes, this can be a way. This can be a way to do what? To incentivize. Incentivize the ensuring that in every village there is every household has a toilet within their house itself, so that open defecation etc. is not there. What do you think about the law that was passed by the state of Haryana? Education qualification. Do you think it is something that should be followed? Do you think that the law that was passed by the state of Haryana, it should be followed in other states also? Now, should they also pass a law at least prescribing some minimum qualification? Yes or no? Q. Why do you say yes? Why do you say yes? What is the reason that you think? No, you said, most of you said yes. Some of you, you don't say anything. But most of you, in andar se antaratma ki awaaz aapki thi yes. So if yes, why yes? How? How can the education level be improved? Not. Why? What is the reason for not? You cannot expect everyone to be educated at the village level. Government schools are there. Okay. Yes. Because illiteracy is all. It is prevalent. Okay. Yes. He can impart education. He cannot impart education, but okay, your idea is that if there is an educated individual, he is like, he will be more ज़्यादा समझदार होगा, कुछ इस तरह का. You cannot consider education as a criteria for leadership quality. You are preventing some individuals to be elected to such offices. What do you think about what she has to say? Don't you think she puts up a very valid point that if you take up this qualification, that an individual who is only attained the certain age, it will do what? It will actually act as a disincentive for those individuals who are not educated. And he's, she is also saying that leadership quality and education are not related. What do you think about this point? Is it valid?
Yes.
It is valid.
Why not, sir? Experience sometimes work better than education.
Experience works better than education. Okay. Now, think of it again. Do you think a law such as law prescribing an education qualification can be considered a good law? And should the other states still follow it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because what she says is absolutely correct. See, it's like, देखो ऐसे तो विराट कोहली भी 12वीं पढ़ा है, वो ग्रेजुएट नहीं है, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये तो नहीं है ना कि वो क्रिकेटर अच्छा नहीं है, अंग्रेजी भी अच्छी बोलता है. It does not. You are trying to relate two skills which are not related. What is the basic reason for coming out with such bodies? Do you think this body has the responsibility for educating others? Teachers chun rahe hain kya? Nahi na. We are not doing that. The idea here is to ensure. The idea here is to ensure that those individuals who are experienced or not educated, they are not educated. That means literate hona. When we say literacy, an individual who is literate does not mean the individual may be qualified to hold an office because the individual is literate. An individual who may not be literate, who may not necessarily be educated enough, but may have more understanding of the conditions that are prevalent in that region. Not only that, आपने कहा government schools है. My idea behind this is looking at it from a different angle. Suppose an individual is not educated. An individual is not educated, they are not literate. Suppose, I'll give you my example. My mother is not literate. My mother is not literate. She knows how to write and not literate in terms of what is the governmental norms. Governmental norms of literate is if you can sign or you can read bus numbers, etc., you are literate. I am not talking about that grounds. I am talking about formal education degree. So accordingly, if you look in that manner, in that case my mother is not a literate individual. But can I say that because she is not literate, can I just allocate this idea that the problem that why she was not literate is because of her? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. How can I blame the failure of a state not to provide education to the individual? To the individual, I cannot do that. Because the failure to provide education is the failure of the state, not the failure of the individual. If she would have had the choice and she would have chosen not to be a literate, only then I could blame her that it is because of you. But an individual who did not have a choice, how can I blame that she is the reason for her not being literate? It is the failure of the state, not the failure of the individual. So how can you punish an individual for your failure? The state is doing that. The state is punishing an individual who is not a literate. That is the state's failure, and the state is trying to punish another individual for its own failure. And this is the reason why, if you look at the law may not necessarily be a correct law, though the constitutional validity of it may not necessarily be considered wrong. Okay, fine, constitutionally it may be right, but can we say that this is an appropriate or good law? No, it is not. Why? Because first of all, it has nothing to do with literacy of or education of an individual. It has nothing to do with that. Second of all, when it comes to this literacy, it is not in a country like India. I am not talking about a developed country like US or some other. I am talking about a country like India. In a country like India, failure to provide education is the failure of state, not the failure of that particular individual. Not the failure of that particular individual. So today, that is the reason why we have come out with a number of things like Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. You can go to the go to the school. The school provides for everything. The school provides for the uniform. The school provides books. The school provides all the necessary stationery, etc., etc. Now, when my mother was a child, she did not have access to any of such things. She did not have access to any of such things. And we are talking about a patriarchal society. In a patriarchal society, women as it is, they are at a disadvantage. So neither she did have access to such resources, neither did, because of the social condition that was there, and neither the state was successful in providing education. So how can we say it is the failure of that individual, and how can we punish the individual for it? There is a problem with such laws. Clear? Next. 243I. Directly we jump to this particular article, 243I. It deals with Constitution of Finance Commission. The Constitution of Finance Commission to review the financial position of the panchayats. The governor of the state appoints a finance commission every 5 years to recommend on the following. First, the principles which should govern the first sub point here. See, the principles which should govern the first sub point. The distribution between the states and the panchayats. The distribution between the states and the panchayats of the net proceeds of taxes, duties, tolls and fees levied by the state. So what does it mean? This very idea deals with horizontal as well as vertical distribution of taxes between the state and panchayats and between the panchayats. Clear? Second, within this second sub point, the determination of taxes, duties, tolls and fee which may be assigned to or appropriated by the panchayats. Which means what? It means that it is not to be distributed. Now it is to be given to the panchayats. So suppose there is a see, there are two things here. First, suppose there is a tax called as, like yesterday we were discussing, a tax called as professional tax. Now this professional tax, suppose it collects 500 crores. Distribution between panchayat and the state means there will be division. Part of it will be given to the state and part of it will be given to the Panchayat. When we say assigning the tax, it means what? All of it will be given to the Panchayat. No distribution, all of it will be given to the Panchayat. So the State Finance Commission also recommends what are those taxes that should be given to the Panchayats. The state shall not keep it within themselves, with themselves, it should be given to the Panchayats. Third, the grant in aid. The grant in aid to the Panchayats. Now, this means what? What are the grants that should be given? Not division of taxes. It is about grants. Clear? Second. That means these sub points are over. Now come to the second one. The measures needed to improve. The measures needed to improve the financial position of the Panchayats, financial positions of the Panchayats, and third, any other matter referred to the Finance Commission, any other matter referred to the Finance Commission by the Governor. By the Governor. Next, Article 243I, Clause 2. Same article, Clause 2. A very important fact. The state legislature may by law, the state legislature may by law provide for the composition of the commission, and the qualification of its members, Clause 4. The governor shall cause every recommendation with an explanatory memorandum, the governor shall cause every recommendation with an explanatory memorandum as to the actions taken thereon, to be laid before the legislature, of the state. So remember, State Election Commission is a State Finance Commission is a constitutional body. Like the Finance Commission of India, which Article 280 of the Constitution talks about. I have not dealt with it currently. I will be dealing with it. So the State Finance Commission is also a constitutional body appointed by the governor every 5th year, and it takes up these duties, basically recommends principles what part of the money that the state has should be given to the states and what are to be distributed to the panchayats, and among the panchayats how it should be distributed. Secondly, it also ensures that what are the money that is given, that should be given to the panchayats itself, all the collection that comes from the taxation that is there. It also recommends what are the grants in aid that should be given to the panchayats. Secondly, it also talks about any other recommendations that are there for the sound finances of the panchayats. The governor can give it as a term of reference to the State Finance Commission, and the State Finance Commission recommend on those positions. Who decides the composition of it? The composition of the Finance Commission and the qualification of the members of Finance Commission is decided by the state legislature. So, existence or constitution of Finance Commission, State Finance Commission, mandatory. Qualification and composition, that is how many members are there and what is their qualification, it is the discretionary power of the state. Clear? Next, Article 243K, elections. Clause 1. The superintendent's direction and control of the preparation of electoral rolls for and conduct of all elections shall be in the State Election Commission consisting of a state election commissioner be appointed by the governor. Clause 2. The conditions of service of the state election commissioner shall be decided by the governor subject to a law made by the state legislature. Next paragraph here. The state election commissioner shall be removed from office in like manner and on the grounds as a judge of the High Court. And conditions of his service will not be altered to his disadvantage. Clear? See, there are 2 or 3 very important facts that are present in this. First of all, who appoints the election commission? The governor. So underline governor. Underline, election commission shall consist of one election commissioner, state election commissioner, which means unlike the election commission of India, election commission of the state is a single membered body. Election commission of India says what? Article 324 says the president shall appoint a chief election commissioner and any number of. Here it says only the state election commissioner. So it is only a single member body, not a multi-membered body. Clear? Third, also underline how he is removed. Clear? So even the state election commission is a constitutional body. Remember, when we were discussing the election commission of India, we did say election commission of India is responsible for conduct of elections to the offices of president and the vice president and to the union parliament and the state legislatures. We did not talk about municipalities and panchayats. Why? Because their conduct of elections of municipalities and panchayats are the responsibility of the state election commission. Clear? Next. 243L. 243L, application to UTs. Application to UTs. The provision for PRIs shall apply to UTs, and in their application to the UTs, the office of the governor is to be the administrator of the UT, UT, and the president may through a public notification provide for exceptions and modifications. Clear? So UT, you asked about UT. What was the question? So the same idea is there. See, for UTs automatically extended to UTs. So in this case, if suppose there is a law that is to be made depending upon what kind of UT it is. If it is a UT with with legislature, so the state legislature here, whatever we have talked about, it is the legislature of that UT. The governor is the administrator, and if for UTs we have to make any modifications, it is the president who will do that with a public notification. Clear? If there is a law to be made, it will be made by the parliament. Clear? If specifically, if there is a law that is made, it will be made by the parliament. Clear? They are called as administrators. So you have written that governor is the administrator. So whatever power the governor enjoys, those powers are enjoyed then by the administrator. Otherwise, only in 3 UTs, Delhi, Puducherry and J&K, you have what is called as lieutenant governor. Otherwise, you have administrators. Clear? Next, Article 243M. Areas exempted by the 70th, areas exempted, just write areas exempted. Clause 1. Not applicable to scheduled areas, and tribal areas, scheduled areas and tribal areas mentioned under clause 2 of Article 244. Here in brackets write 244, clause 2 of 244, in brackets write tribal areas in the state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram, brackets closed, start another bracket, right? States of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram for scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. See this whatever you have written in the bracket, just give me a day or two, I'll come to Article 244, you will understand what I have just did. This is so that you refer, whenever you refer to these notes, you will automatically be reminded of it. What does this provision say? It provisions the provision that when we talk about Article 244 of the Constitution, Article 244 of the Constitution talks about scheduled areas and some tribal areas. So you will find that there are certain states that they have been declared as tribal state. The whole state itself is a tribal state. On the other hand, there are some states wherein some areas have been identified as tribal dominated areas. They are declared as scheduled areas. Clear? They are somewhere around in 10 states. Whether Telangana has been included or not, I don't know. Otherwise, it was previously there before partition of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It was there in 10 states. These scheduled areas exist in 10 states. So the whole, not the whole state, only some part of the state is declared as a scheduled area. So for those cases that are mentioned under Article 244, that has not been included here. Clear? Second, clause 2. Clause 2. It will not be applicable in the states of Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram, and the hill areas of the state of Manipur, for which district council is in force. It is also not applicable, you can write it in the next paragraph, not applicable to the hill areas of the district of Darjeeling, in the state of West Bengal, for which Darjeeling Gorkha Hill Council exists under a law for the time being. Next paragraph. Article 243D and provisions relating to reservation of seats for scheduled caste in Article 243D shall not apply to the state of Arunachal Pradesh. After I complete my discussion on this, I'll come to something called as a PESA law, PESA Act, and that is what deals with scheduled areas. Now, for the time being, except for going back to a definition on fundamental rights, I did discuss what are scheduled areas then. After that, we have not discussed scheduled areas. Dekho, simple idea is that if you look at scheduled areas, basically these are those areas which have a prominently tribal population. A prominent tribal population is there. So in certain states, like if you look at northeastern states of what we have discussed, these states are completely tribal states. More than 80 or 90% of the population that are there, they are basically tribals. So we have done what? We have not extended 73rd constitutional amendment to those states. Why? Because they have their own way of life. Clear? So tribals have their own way of life, they have their own way of choosing, their representatives, etc. And in this case, we do not interfere. We do not interfere. So for those areas, it is completely exempted. Then in certain cases, like in the state of Assam, or for that matter in the state of West Bengal, there are something called as hill councils, autonomous hill councils that exist. Like in the state of Assam, there is something called as a Bodoland Territorial Council. Or in the state of West Bengal, there is like Darjeeling Hill Council. Darjeeling Hill Council is what? Basically the area of the Gorkhas. They are basically living there. They have been given some autonomy under the constitution. It is completely constitutional to give them autonomy under the 6th schedule of the constitution. So they are given autonomy there. So they have their own legislature, own administration, all these things are there. So in those areas which have this autonomy under the Constitution of India, these areas 73rd constitutional amendment is not applicable. Clear? Absolutely clear. And obviously the state of Arunachal Pradesh, which is there again, because it has a predominantly tribal population, the reservation of scheduled castes, the reservation given to scheduled caste is not applicable there. 73rd constitutional amendment is applicable, but only this provision 243D and reservation given to scheduled castes there, that is not applicable to the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Clear? Understood this? These are the areas which it has not been applicable. Previously, because of Article 370 of the Constitution, Article 370 of the Constitution, which said that in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, except for barring these three areas, that is defense, or communication, or external affairs, or foreign policy. In these three cases, whatever laws the Parliament made, it was automatically extended even to the state of J&K. For other areas, for other laws that were made by the Parliament, it was not automatically extended. So it required, Article 370 said, it required the consent of the state legislature. Clear? So those laws were not automatically extended there. So 73rd constitutional amendment was also not automatically extended. But now this is not the case, because obviously we have amended Article 370 of the Constitution. Otherwise, I would have also mentioned the state of J&K here, but now it is not the case. Clear? Next. Clause 4. Clause 4, very important. Clause 4. The legislature of the states, states of Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram, states of Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram may by law extend this part to their state, extend their part to their states, barring those areas which are mentioned under Article 244, for which if the state legislative assembly passes a resolution by a special majority, is needed. Now see, what does this mean? Very important. It's a bit technical. Article 244, which talks about these scheduled areas that we have been talking about. If we look at these states, state of Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram, from which it has been completely excluded. The 73rd constitutional amendment has been completely excluded. In these states, if the state legislature wants, they can pass a resolution by a simple majority and extend these provisions, that is 73rd constitutional amendment, to these states. However, if any part of these states fall under Article 244 of the Constitution, for those parts, 73rd constitutional amendment to be extended to those parts, they require not a simple majority but a special majority. So for those areas, only a special majority, if a resolution passed by a special majority, only through that it can be extended. Clear? Next paragraph. The Parliament may by a law, extend the provisions to the scheduled areas and the tribal areas, under Article 244 with such exemptions and modifications such a law will not be deemed as a constitutional amendment. Such a law will not be deemed as a constitutional amendment. Not be deemed a constitutional amendment. Not be deemed a constitutional amendment. In brackets write PESA. P-E-S-A. What is this? I'll be dealing with it in the next class. What is the PESA law? Very important. It's one of the very important laws, and if you go through a previous year question paper, you will find that this is one of the favorite topics that UPSC tends to ask question from. In prelims as well as in mains examination, you get a lot of questions from PESA. So next, when we meet, we not only start a discussion with PESA and then we move to the municipalities. With that, we complete our discussion on local bodies.